You know the tea's gonna be good when someone breaks out the chapstick. Just saying. What is up, you guys? It's me, your girl, your Casey, and this is Maggie. Maggie's a dog. She also likes to hog most of the bed. Just saying. My hair does not look good flipped this way. I look like a lion. Too much hair. It's a weird problem to have. Maggie, what are you doing? You're not a parrot. Anyways, hi. What is up? I'll tell you what's up. I read 2 bad books, and it's a duology, so it makes sense that badness is kind of grouped together. I read The Circle and The Every by someone named Eggers, and together they are a strange pair that do not work, yet somehow it manages to pull off one thing that most books are horrible for. One of these books manages to do very well with a very boring and dull character, and it makes sense why said character is like that. But the other book is basically a copy and paste replica of the first book. Literally, they're doing the exact same thing, but it's even worse than the first book because it messes up its character by trying and failing to give them a personality. It's a weird thing. Typically, I sit here and complain about the lack of personality in a character. Maggie, do not yell. Maggie, do not growl at the lawn guy. She's fierce. Right now, I'm reading Crave, which is honestly a very awful, very boring Twilight ripoff. All the characters in there are trash, which is bad because it's trying to tell a story and get you invested in a romance, but none of the people have personalities. They're just reacting to everything around them. But the first book, The Circle, even though it is a very boring book, the one thing that it has going for it is that it's told very well by the character that we're forced to be with, May. I think I give the first book a 3, and the last one is definitely like a 1. Like, again, it should have just been a short story instead of like I think it was like 500 pages, stretched out the 500 pages. Because again, I can't emphasize this enough, it literally did the first thing as the first one. They're very repetitive and dull together. So in the world of The Circle, there's this great big company called The Circle that has overtaken everything. Social media, shopping, companies, environmental causes, just every single aspect of life. Or really, they're on their way towards getting there, because it's pretty obvious what the moral of these 2 books are. The Circle is a program where you can access everything through it, but you're only allowed 1 account, and it has to be your real identity. So there's no hiding behind a fake name, no catfishing, and no real lying, because if you're forced to use your real name, you're gonna behave much nicer online, aren't you? Some people in my comments section need to learn that. Hi, Maggie. And the company, The Circle, is getting bigger and better. People are just like raving about how great it is and how it's such an exceptional company to work for. This catches the attention of our main character, May. May's just this typical girl. She's working this job that she hates in her hometown. She has this ex-boyfriend who she broke up with, hence the ex in front of boyfriend. Duh, Casey. But she just wants to get away from the mundanity of her life. She has a friend, a connection, who works right now with The Circle. Can't remember her name, it's not important. She just comes in and out of the book randomly. But this friend manages to get May a job, and May's just #blessed. So happy to be here, and she's ready to work. May has no personality, but it works. It really does. Like, I gave the book a 3 stars, so it's not like it's that good, but I understood why in this book, where it's literally just pitches, like from Meg getting the job and her orientation and learning what she's doing on the job at her like call center type thing, is like she's in charge of customer relations, she's on the computer helping people with their queries. That's what she's starting off with. But in between, it's like every chapter we'd be with May working. Then the next chapter would be everybody getting together at The Circle. Somebody stands on a stage, or we just meet some random one-off character, an NPC who just happens to stumble by May, and they tell us, oh, here's this new technology I'm working on. It's going to replace so-and-so. It's going to reduce so-and-so much waste on Earth. It's going to revolutionize so-and-so industry. And they would just go on, just pitching you for paragraphs upon end about how great their technology is. and the circle will implement it. And then the chapter will end and it'll go back to May working, next chapter, another pitch, next chapter, May working, or she talks with her family, or she'll talk with her ex-boyfriend Mercer, who's very anti-circle. This book got some flack for like being really preachy with its anti-technology message, but not really, except with Mercer. Mercer is giving the, ooh, you think it's good that all these devices know your real name? Yeah, he was talking more robotically than actually everybody else in this book, which is saying something. So again, every chapter would be either May working or learning something new about the circle. Next chapter would be some new technology that's introduced and everybody just falls in love with. It's very repetitive. You get to see with like every new piece of technology introduced, it's getting a little bit more morally gray. It's like pushing some lines. Like there's talk about, you know, inserting microchips into babies' bones when they're born. This is to prevent, you know, predators or kidnappers from stealing them, which is helpful, but also, well, first they were pitching it like, oh, and it will be removed after like they turn 13, da 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 da. So people are like, oh, that's okay, just unless it's removed when they do turn 13. And the company's like, oh yeah, sure. Then just like a couple months later, when everybody's in love with the idea of the chips in the bones, they're like, well, what if we like load that microchip with so much information? Like you'll be able to look at your kids' scores at school. You'll be able to see what they're at, if they're really going to soccer practice or if they're going to the mall. And you don't have to remove it if you don't want to. So now they're like, oh, this is okay, but as long as it's optional that we can or cannot remove it. You see, it kind of like escalates until it eventually removes the choice of taking the chip out or not. So the book's basically about escalating technology and the eventual loss of privacy and opinion because of the loss of privacy. And May just gets swept up in all of that. She's purposefully kept personality-less, just so it's like especially honed in how all of this new technology and the personas we have to like make for online presences and social medias, it takes you over. And we see that happen to May pretty much immediately because she's just so grateful to be at the circle, at this great company. Besides like her hatred for her ex-boyfriend, her love for kayaking, which actually led her into a bit of trouble that caused her to make a tremendously awful choice later on in the book, there is nothing that really defines May. I really don't know what drives her. Maybe like someone could argue, oh, just make the world a better place. That's why she's at the circle in the first place after all. Well, sure, there's that. But besides that, career-wise, she doesn't have a personality. There's nothing that makes her up. There's nothing inside of her. She's just literally reacting to all the new technology thrown in her face. And I think this is the one instance where I think having a kind of a blank slate character really works. I know like in YA, we got like our Bella Swans from Twilight where we're supposed to be able to like slide ourselves into their skin. But for this one, we're really supposed to feel like we're like swept up in this new wave of technology. Besides that one aspect that I like, that I think it did tell well. Again, it was a boring book and it ended exactly the way I thought it was going to. But I think that's what kept me comfortable. Like, even though this is a book that's trying to get your brain working, and it's like, ooh, algorithms, be careful, security cameras. Even though it's trying to get you to think, it was actually something I could turn my brain off with because I knew where the story was going. I didn't really have to pay attention. But as an introvert, this book was also really good at making me feel anxious because the circle is all about community and being seen. Because if you're seen more and if your online presence is like amplified, they can mine more data out of you. So at first, May, because she's like very new to her work, she kind of wants to like go back to her room and recharge. Relatable. I'm always like in a state of recharging. I'm like your old Motorola phone. If you unplug it from the cord for like 30 minutes, it dies really fast. I'm such an introvert. But in the circle, they want you to be constantly moving and with people. And so like the amount of expectations and extrovertedness of just the whole community of the circle made me nervous. Because I know if I was in that situation, my introvert wall would just be thrown up. No one would be able to get me out of the room. Everybody would hate me and I'd get fired. Maybe that's a good thing though. Also, May, she works with like customer services. She's taking the complaints and the questions. And like, if she takes like a minute to get to your email, there would already be like 5 emails being like, I didn't receive a response in 10 seconds and it made me feel devalued as a human. I accidentally ghost people for months on end. I have devalued so many people apparently. More proof I would not work in customer relations well. No. Some people need to be told over the phone to put the big girl panties on, and that's facts. So do I think it's a good book? No. Was I like bored to the point of insanity? No. It was just like a mellow, purposeful-less read. Except when you get to the next book, the Every, which is literally the same, but so much worse. I mean, the story beats are exactly the same. Our new main character, Delaney, she shows up to work at the Circle, which is run by May now, because this is 10 years into the future. May's in charge. And so it's funny. The Goodreads review of the Circle were so hateful to May. She's dull. She's pointless. I hate her. Awful book. And the 2 parts of my brain are like, yeah, she's supposed to be that way. And I agree. She's dull. But in the second book, The Every, it's like the author took all that hatred for May and put it in the book, in the next book. Because hold on, I got notes. May, she's in charge of the Circle, and she's been in charge for like 10 or less years. But apparently she hasn't had any new ideas for a long time. People are beginning not to like her. Some people just think she's like dipsy and naive and just bland, because she is. It's really like the haters of May in the first book are now being channeled through all those Goodreads reviews through the second book. We had someone in the book call May a soulless, conscienceless, world-ending secular antichrist. This is technology introduced into the second book. And basically, we have this whole department of people working at the Every, which is the Circle, but they renamed it to the Every because it's taken over everything. And this one department, what they do is they go through works of fiction and they make sure it's approved. You know, if they say a bad word, they replace it with another one. If it doesn't meet societal standards of today, they'll just rip out that chunk in the book and put something new in it. Censoring. They're censoring stuff. And when Delaney's walking around this department, she's like, oh, well, this sounds like a great idea. I like it. And the boss of the department is like, yeah, we were able to do research and find out why people like stop reading books. What's the main thing that makes them angry? And it's usually the main character. They say the main thing is that the main character should behave the way you want them to and do what you want them to do. That's the tease. The author don't like his readers. Or at least the guys who wrote the main Goodreads reviews. But yeah, this book is literally the same. Delaney going about her job, new technology introduced, repeat that cycle. But she is a smidge different. While you had May in the first book, who came into the Circle all wide-eyed and excited and filled with life, you got Delaney, who is hell-bent on destroying the Every from the ground up. Our girl Delaney was a park ranger, and she loved her job. She loved being out in the wilderness with the animals and the plants and the babbling brooks. And she loved being away from technology. She loved being away from the Every. But soon, the Every's like, we have an unsecured, undocumented piece of land in these national parks. We can't have that. Let's put security cameras up on every tree branch and make it law that people have to carry their phones on the trails. Delaney don't like this one bit. She feels like her last sanctuary has been overtaken by the Every. But that's not all. Even more into her backstory. She has parents, mom and dad. They used to run an organic grocery store. Well, the Every, they bought out Amazon. Amazon is another funny tangent in this book. Amazon is treated like Lord Voldemort in this book. You can't say the word Amazon because it stirs up bad feelings. They call what was known as Amazon the jungle. So the Every purchased the jungle, and that means they purchased like all the other little sub-companies and mom and pop shops that Amazon bought. One of those mom and pop shops were Delaney's parents' grocery store. So not only have they taken away her precious hiking trails, they took her family's grocery store, which I feel bad for because now her parents are like corporate drones for the Every. But to me, it also sounds like a very lame villain backstory, like Dr. Doofenshmirtz, saying he like tried to take over the world because he lost his toy train or something. But then he's like, I will bring down the Every because they shut down my organic grocery store. So help me God. So yeah, Delaney sends in her application. She manages to get a job, and she doesn't have like an assigned position yet. She's just floating around testing every department. So again, we have all those chapters where, oh, here's this new technology. I'm going to talk to you about it for 10 whole pages, and you're going to pretend to be interested. Next chapter would be Delaney going on some rage-fueled rant about the Every, technology, blah, blah, blah. Delaney isn't a good fit for this book. While May was like personality-less enough that you can slide yourself into, Delaney, compared to May's naivety, Delaney's stupid. Oh, well, what's her plan for, taking down the Circle? Her plan, my friend, is to get a job at the Circle, and she's going to destroy it from the inside out. How? She's going to introduce a bunch of bad ideas for apps. And eventually, all these ideas will be so stupid, the people, the public, the marketplace will lose all trust in the Every and won't use it anymore. That's her plan. My girl, have you not looked at all the apps on the App Store? You can find an app for literally everything. X-ray vision. I think there's one for like a breathalyzer. One could probably tell if you're pregnant. People love dumb apps. I needed to be in this book to save this girl. Save her a couple of months or years of her life. So, like I said, Delaney waltzes in, gives all these bad ideas. Everyone loves it. So she's trying more and more to pitch bad ideas. It backfires completely. We also have this weird plot point that I have to mention because it was actually a very important event that happened later on down the road. This book constantly likes to draw attention that all the men at the Every walking around the campus are wearing very tight, form-fitting lycra bodysuits. And you can see their bulges. I'm mentioning it because it's mentioned every other chapter, and again, it actually turns into a plot point. And weirdly enough, that plot point was actually my second favorite part in the book. My first favorite part, because even though we had a stupider main character in the exact same plot as the first book, it was still good at giving me that sense of anxiety because Delaney, she has to do this presentation because she's new to the company, and it's like an about me presentation. What's my favorite thing? What do I like to do? Delaney is all about nature. So she's like, hey, I'll take a bus full of people to the beach, and we got a bunch of like elephant seals down there, and we'll just go and watch the elephant seals. Well, she loads everybody up on the bus, but first it was like a whole debacle about, oh, what type of sandwiches are we getting? What? Ham? Animal murder? No. Okay, so cucumber sandwiches? Cucumbers are imported. You're gonna waste all that fossil fuel for a 5-minute snack? Disgusting human being, roll yourself in the pit of Tartarus. Eventually they manage to get some food. So they pack it up in the coolers, they get on the bus. Oh, they accidentally drive through a bunch of farmland. You see all these enslaved cattle chewing grass and cud in the golden fields. Everybody on board starts crying. They call it like an animal Auschwitz, which I think is over-exaggerating, but everybody's crying, so I'm not gonna make them cry more. They finally manage to get to the animal seals. They finally get to go to the elephant seals. A park ranger is there ready to give a presentation about the life of the elephant seals. Only Delaney's really paying attention, except when the ranger is like, oh yeah, so the elephant seals, they come to the shore to mate. Well, they have their babies too here, and the moms will leave the babies to die and fight on their own. Most of the baby seals will drown, or they will starve to death. This sends everybody into a fit of hysterics. Now Delaney has a bunch of whiny, crying adults sobbing over dead baby seals. She's getting angry text messages and emails and reports sent to her phone because of all the crying man babies. She now has to go to like a little court hearing about all the emotional trauma she's inflicted upon all these bus riders, and it just made me hate people even more. I want to stay in my house forever. That chapter was called The Longest Day. It was actually probably the longest chapter too, but it was my favorite chapter because at least it got anger out of me instead of boredom. So after all that, what does this book accomplish? Exactly the same thing as the first. Technology is encroaching every area of your life. Ooga booga, run, beware. It starts that way, it ends that way. Second book was pointless. Should have been a short story. There's this weird, like, baby subplot, like, ooh, one of the characters in this book is pregnant. It doesn't go anywhere. Why it was even introduced is kind of dumb. One character sees, like, what's it called when you take a picture of a baby in the womb? Sonogram. I'm just gonna call it green screen picture thing. One of our characters goes and gets a doctor appointment. She walks into the doctor's clinic and she sees like a green screen baby picture thing belonging to May. So she's like, oh, May's pregnant. That seems very weird because she's very, let's not have babies, overpopulation. That's her thing. So in my mind, I had that tucked away in the back of my skull as like, ooh, is this gonna be like a human experiment thing? And also I thought it would tie into a character aptly named Ty, who we met in the first book, who disappears after the first book. So I thought he was gonna make an appearance. It would tie into the baby too. Sadly, my thoughts, my theories make up a better book than what this book actually was. Nothing goes nowhere. You know, it's good that this duology is like called The Circle, because you literally finish the book and you end up exactly where you left off. Spend your time reading something else, like Eldest by Christopher Paolini. Best book of all time. Come at me, bro. I'll fight you over it. If you know a cool book about AI taking over the world, let me know. I'm into that jazz. But somehow, this book, even though it technically isn't AI, but it's basically AI, this book made AI taking over the world boring, and that offends me. So I'm clocking out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, stay reading, my friends. Oh yeah, and I forgot that in the second book, they make an argument that owning pets is like slavery, and that we should release them into the wild. So you gotta go, Maggie. I hope you're ready to go hunt caribou all by yourself, because I ain't helping you. You're your own woman. You're independent. Go. Be free, you doggo. Be the inner wolf I know you have inside of you. Grr.